Hey, welcome back to the Group Project Podcast. This is episode number 33, and I've got a very special guest here. I'm excited. I told him I'm a little nervous because he's one of my idols. This is Dr. Joe Sanfelippo, the superintendent of Fall Creek School District in Fall Creek, Wisconsin. Can I call you Joe? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. The only people in the world that need to call me Dr. Sanfelippo are the 7 guys I lived with in college. And they all, no matter what, they call me Joe. I just like, I don't know who you're talking about. I have no idea. Like, hey, Dr. Sanfelippo, can you get me a beer? Yeah, absolutely. I can. That's right. So those are the only guys that are required to call me Dr. Sanfelippo.
Okay. All right, man. Well, hey, this is how I got introduced to you. It was actually just a couple years ago. It was 2018, and you came and talked at the at the School Administrators of Iowa conference that summer of 2018. I'm 99% sure it was them.
Yep.
So it was only a couple years ago, but man, I remember I picked your session not knowing who you were. I know you were going to talk about culture and branding and telling your story of the district. And I walked in that morning and listened to you for about 90 minutes and just, wow, just like the energy in that room was incredible. I immediately left and I went and told, that was my first year as a superintendent. And I was with our admin team, about eight others. And I said, if there's one session you go to this afternoon, it's Joe's session. So that's how it started. Then I read Hacking Leadership and I've been hooked ever since. So again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I know you've got some stuff to get to tonight for your daughter.
Yeah.
So hey, let's start off with this. You know, a lot of people know you now as Superintendent Joe, as Twitter famous Joe, as the author, the speaker. But maybe tell us, where were you at before your superintendent role, and maybe just give us a summary of how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, I think that I think the thing is like, well, I don't even like saying that. I mean, like the whole Twitter thing and everything that went along with it. I love that people follow the stuff that we do, and that's cool, but it's not because of the stuff that I do. It's the stuff that we do as a school district. And I think it puts a lot of eyes on the people that are doing the real work. And I'm honestly just trying to move stuff out of the way for them so they can do the best work that they can. And so what's been really cool about the whole Twitter thing and about doing some of the speaking things is that when our people go to places now, if they go to events or they go to, other places around the state, like people know who they are. And just because they wear their Go Cricket stuff, it ends up being something that people really get into. And I love it. And I love that we're in that spot, that we're able to do that because these people are doing really incredible work. And so to be able to celebrate them on that kind of level, but also knowing that the stuff that they're doing is also stuff that people across the country are doing. The only reason that we get to talk about what we do is because we talk about what we do. That's really it. And we found kind of a little niche in terms of talking about what we do. And that's been really fun. So prior to doing this job, I taught kindergarten for 6 months and got right out of there. So kindergarten teachers are brilliant and they have the most patience in the world. And I lasted 6 months and I was teaching half-day kindergarten. So you're talking about like you get in, you get a snack, you do calendar, you get a book, and then it's time to go home. And I still couldn't do that. So I did that. So I taught second grade and fifth grade for a while. And then I was an elementary school counselor. And then I got into the principal role. I coached at the high school. I coached basketball and golf at the high school, and then got into the principal role. And then I was it was 5 years in a bigger district in Wisconsin, in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is a fantastic district as well. And was there for 5 years. And then this opportunity came up in Fall Creek, where the guy that actually hired me in Eau Claire was doing an interim superintendent job here. And he said, you may just want to come on and check this place out. Like he knew that I wanted to find a small town for our family. And And he said, just may want to check it out. And so we came out, and he wanted me to check it out because he raised his family here too. So it was really kind of a cool transition. And so that was in 2010. And I've been here ever since. I was the principal for a year, and then I was the principal and superintendent for 3 years. And then I've been the superintendent for the last 6 at this point.
Okay. And so I'm just trying to get myself oriented here. I'm looking at the map of Google Maps of Wisconsin. So I always say it wrong. Eau Claire
Yeah.
is
Eau Claire.
just a short drive down the highway there from where you're at. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Eau Claire is 10 minutes away from where we're at. And it's, we're an hour and a half east of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so, I mean, we're on the good side, of course. And then we're on and Eau Claire's a town of, like, when I go to get my daughter tonight at gymnastics, I go to Eau Claire, and it's 25 minutes away from here to there to where I'm going to get her. But you can get to anything that you need. And, Fall Creek, Wisconsin it's great. I mean, it's also a bedroom community. I mean, there's 3 bars, 2 gas stations, 1 school. That's it, man. And I think that's part of the love of it is that. But there's also, it's the nice part is you're 10 minutes away from the south side of Eau Claire, where you can get whatever you need to get. Like, that makes it a lot easier.
So did you grow up in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I grew up on the east side of the state. I was in Fond du Lac, which is about an hour and a half north of Milwaukee, hour east of Madison. And that was it was a great place to grow up, and I enjoyed it. And then we moved north to when I was teaching and when I was a counselor, we were right outside of Green Bay. And then my wife went to college in Eau Claire, so she always wanted to kind of get back into the area. So we when a principal job came up, we just kind of took a flyer on it. And I had just gotten my principal degree, so I hadn't done anything in the principalship. But I think it was one of those things where you kind of get on a roll with questions and answers and stuff like that. And it was just kind of what they were looking for at that particular time. So we kind of got lucky that I got on a roll and sounded smart at the time, I guess. So it was a great opportunity for us to come over here.
So growing up in Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
Packers fan,
Always, yeah,
Badgers
100%.
fan, all the above.
Yeah, you kind of have to be, right? Like, you really have to be. And I think I love it. I love it, and always have been. And so I, love watching Packer football. And I think it's nice that it's just such a, like a incredible fan base for that. And I think we've actually taken a lot of like what they do socially and what the Badgers do socially and what Marquette basketball does socially, and kind of try to emulate some of those things to get stories out there. And that's been really cool, just to kind of model a couple things after what they do and kind of get connected to it. So
that sounds awesome. Do you have an example or two of that off the top of your head? I'm curious.
Yeah. So a lot of times we'll do I'll see what they do with their Instagram stories, and we kind of like try to put together some graphics that kind of mirror what those look like and get some ideas from there. Sometimes they'll do like the Packers do where you're watching the Packer game from. So we do that with our basketball games too, like tell us where you're watching a Fall Creek game from. And we get on our Facebook page, on our live feed, where everybody's watching the game from and that kind of thing. So those kind of things are fun. And it's been really helpful to be in a spot where you can kind of find some of these things some of these people are doing great things, and just kind of keep them in the same spots. You can always have them at the ready. So
you're one more sports question here. I'm curious, from a Packers fan, from a Packers diehard, who is your biggest rival? Is it the Bears? Is it the Vikings? Is it who would you say? Who do the Packers fans despise the most?
I think the Packers fans probably despise the Bears the most, but that's because it was just kind of a beatdown for a long time. And I think I have a bigger issue with the Vikings, but it's probably because I'm closer, and that there's people over here that are actual Viking fans, like real life Viking fans, like they admit it out loud, which is stunning to me, but they still do it. And so I probably have a bigger issue with that. If we're talking about who would I be more upset when they lose to? Geez, I don't even know. Both of them would be. I think I get more upset when they lose to the Vikings, though. I really do. But it has more to do with the fact that I got to hear about it for like 3 days or 4 days after from a couple staff members, and thankfully I haven't had to in a long while.
I was going to say you've had the upper hand. The Packers have seemed to have had the upper hand for the most part these last handful, the Aaron Rodgers years. I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like.
yeah, absolutely. That hasn't been in close. But I say that on a knock on wood because at that time you get beaten in the playoffs by a
True.
team that shouldn't even be there or something
True.
like that. So, but Packers are playing well and it's cool and
They
it's
are.
fun and
Awesome.
it's been wonderful. So
Awesome. Awesome. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that background of where were you at before. I'm curious, how did you start getting into some of the speaking, the writing? Like, how did that transition happen?
yeah, I don't know if it was. I don't think it was ever. I always wanted to see if there was a way that we could try to influence more people in terms of what we were doing. So I think that, I was teaching, and then I thought that there might be a better chance to influence more people from a counseling perspective. So I started doing the counseling thing, and then I thought, well, maybe there's a better opportunity to impact more change from a principal or from a principal lens. So I got into that. And I think I was always kind of looking for what's next in terms of trying to spread the word of how we can lead a little bit differently. And so that kind of got me into I think that got me into the speaking thing where, where a couple of people had asked to do some, just try to get people motivated and picked up. And I did my first speaking engagement was in Pulaski, Wisconsin, where I was teaching. And then I went and was a counselor in a different district. And I went back. And it was just, I look back on that day and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was awful. I can't believe they had me. That was just so bad. And it was all platitude, like, yeah, all kids can learn, go get it. Like, I mean, like you can't,
What year was this?
oh
How long
God,
ago
it was
was this?
2007.
Wow.
2007. So, and I just kept shouting at everybody and just saying, you can do it, and without giving them like any way that they could do it. It was awful. So, I started doing a couple things here and there. And then when I was in the Eau Claire, I was a principal in Eau Claire for 5 years, and I really didn't do too much at that point at all. Actually, I always felt like I wanted to, but I was just really concentrated on just with the smaller group that I had at that point. But when I got out here to Fall Creek, where it ended up, you can kind of carve your own way because there's not a ton of red tape to go along with some of the stuff that you're doing. And I was a principal here, but there wasn't a lot of like you had to go to this committee and that committee and if you wanted to try something and start something, then you just could. We had a really supportive board, and they just wanted to know what was going on, and they're still that way. We're 10 years into this thing, and we've had a couple board members change over, but they've all been fantastic boards that just want to know what's going on. And so I started doing some of the stuff there where I would kind of go out and speak and talk about some of the stuff that we were doing in Fall Creek. And then it just kind of blew up in a couple of events. And I got asked to speak at a conference called Lead 3. And that would have been in 2013 maybe. And I got to speak. I did day 1 and Sir Ken Robinson did day 2.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it was just such an honor to be able to kind of be on the same page, but literally on the same page when it comes to the program, but not nearly on the same page when it comes to the impact. And listen to him, and to be able to have conversations with him after about the impact that you could have when you really tell great stories and connect with people. And it just, I kind of got the bug, like I really want to do that again, and I really want to do that again. And so so I ended up speaking a couple more times, and then my friend Tony Sinanis and I were asked to write a book for a Corwin series on branding. So that's kind of what we started right with the books. We wrote the Power Branding, then we wrote Principal Professional Development. And there were 2 smaller books that just kind of were part of a series. And then got asked to write a book with Mark Barnes, the Hacking Leadership. And that's been for us just really it's been really fun to see the impact of that book and what that really looks like. So I don't know if I don't love to write. I think there's really, I'm not like really into it at all. I do it and I like to get the ideas out there. I would much rather make a video. I would much rather like do a podcast than write. But I guess it's, can be shown now because as I'm working on another book, it just doesn't seem to end. It's just not going as well as I anticipated.
So
So that's how it worked out.
yeah, well, it's so cool to hear, I see you, or those of us in Iowa who maybe saw you for the first time in 2018, we think, man, this guy's an overnight success.
Yeah.
This guy came out of nowhere, but really it's so cool that you said your first speech was back in 2007.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
You've been refining this for the last 10 years,
Oh yeah. 10 years plus. And I think that the message has stayed relatively on point during that time, probably after 2012. I can tell you, like I saw when Sir Ken Robinson passed away a couple months ago, I think about a month ago, I went back and watched some of the videos of the event that we had done together. And I watched a piece of the keynote and I'm like, well, I still talk about that. I still talk about that. And I still tell that story. And there are some stories that just kind of not transcend time, but they always have the impact. And I think you can tell if you tell the story the right way and you really kind of, work through the process of making sure that the audience can see it in their eyes and not because you did it, then I think they're going to resonate with it, or it's going to resonate with them moving forward.
So you kind of led me into one of my questions. So you said that you compared the video from that speech to what you do now, and there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
What are some of the differences? Meaning, what are some of the tricks you've picked up on since then that you're like, oh, as you watch that 2012, you're like, oh, I do that differently now.
Yeah.
I don't do that. Now I do this. What would those things be?
Well, the first thing is it's just a lot smoother because you like, I think just like anything else, you got to be willing to practice, the delivery and practice the what the story is and make sure that the visuals are the right and that kind of thing. But I think it's definitely smoother as I look at it. And I think about all the slides that I try to do in a presentation and the fact that I'm really kind of like, I just go and I go and I go. And all of a sudden you take a breath and you're 20 minutes into it and you're just hoping that the audience is having a good time and taking a couple things away from them. But I think that the biggest thing that I've taken away is that it's not about you. It's about making sure that they can see success when you're not there. And the stories are fun and exciting and everything. But if they can't see themselves doing what you're talking about, then it's just about you. And it's like it can't be that. So we try to I always try to put people that are sitting out there in a position to say, well, I can do that and I can do that tomorrow. And that's not hard. That's just a change in mindset. So, I think, and for me, it was just, sometimes it's just the logistical things like starting your day differently or, making sure that you start your day with 2 positive notes or end your day by calling kids who have birthdays that day or doing something to put yourself in the right mindset to be in the next phase of whatever that day is in the best way that you possibly can.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about, I know I've read Power of Branding, but you're right. Hacking Leadership was the one that really, like I said, was a breakthrough for me that I just really, really enjoyed. So I've got Hacking Leadership here in front of me.
Oh, nice. Yeah, great.
And it's all marked up. It's got all kinds of highlights and marks and notes and all that. But I'm going to ask you, this is where I get excited because I identified 3 of my most favorite parts.
Okay.
Ask you to explain any additional insight you want to share behind. And I realize it was co-authored, so it was you and Tony. But
well, if you like it, it was a good part, which means that I wrote it and Tony didn't. So that's all there is to with that. His bio is what we really took out of that.
Well, he is listed second there. So
yeah, I know, right? It's great. He is such an incredible educator, and he is an assistant superintendent right now in New York. And not only an incredible educator, but one of the most genuine people that you'll ever meet in your life. And I love him dearly, and I'm so glad that we're friends. And I'm so glad that we got a chance to co-author 3 books together. So I'm very proud of him.
So let's talk about the first thing, and this is kind of in order, and I believe in order in terms of where they were at in the book.
Okay.
I love, and I've mentioned this on Twitter. I've wrote a few blog posts about this myself, but just your definition of instructional leadership. I just feel like, man, that was the first time I'd seen it in a book where it just was like an aha moment for me. The way that you and Tony described what an instructional leader should look like. And I wrote down just one quick quote. You said, the daily work of a school leader is no longer just being administrator or manager or even a boss. Instead, a school leader needs to model transformative practices so that innovating becomes a norm. So one of my favorite parts, there's that whole section around page 15 to 20 where you talk about instructional leadership. What else can you share about how the role of principal has changed from manager to instructional leader?
I think there are pieces that one thing that's really important about that is that you have to understand that you have to be both. Like, it's great that you can be this instructional leader where you can help people innovate, but you know what? Some people want to get paid too. So, which means you have to still fill out the forms and you got to sign the stuff and you got to make sure that the requisitions get to the right page. I mean, there are managerial things that need to happen. But when we talk about the instructional leadership piece of it, the most important piece for us was just the knowledge that we're leading learning organizations. So if you're leading a learning organization, you need to lead the learning in that organization. And that comes with being really transparent about your own leadership journey. And we that goes like beyond just talking about the instructional focus, but it also gives you credibility as a leader if you're working working through the instructional practice. And if we're a learning organization, you really need to be invested in the learning of that organization. And I think that, like, I hear people all the time say, like, well, what I want to do is I want to hire great people and then get out of their way. And I'm like, well, that's not what you're supposed to do, because it's great that you want to hire great people. But if I hire a great person, I don't want to get out of their way. Like, I want to see them do the great things because I hired them. Like, I want to know that they're doing great things. I want to clear the path for them a little bit. I want to get in behind and push a little bit and help, but I don't want to get out of the way. Like, that's not what I'm here for. I want to see them doing great things. Heck, I hired them. Let's go. Right. So the instructional leadership, when we talk about it often, it comes down to how can you not only provide an opportunity for your teachers to do the best work, but how are you modeling that for the people in your world? Is it just something that you're talking about, or are you actually modeling what it means to be a learner? I mean, some of the walks that I do on Saturday are learning walks. 90% of I don't know if there's like 60 of them or something like that. 90% of those walks are things that I've screwed up on. And I want to make sure that people don't screw up on those things. They also are an opportunity for me to share the journey with our staff and say, look, I'm not perfect either, man. And I'm willing to put my not perfect out there for everybody to see. So you should just try something new and be okay with it.
Talk about, most of us probably know what you're talking about with those learning walks, but for people who don't know, can you just explain what that is? Because that is definitely one of your niche, that's your thing. So
I live across the street from school, and on Saturday mornings when my kids are sleeping and my wife is sleeping, then I'll get up and walk across to school to do some work. And on my way to work, I if I'm thinking of something that I think might be helpful to people, I just walk and talk for a little bit, and it's been helpful. I think people seem to like it, and they really like some of them, and they really don't like some of them, and that's okay. But at the same time, I think it's just a chance for me to get out some of the thoughts that I'm having on what leadership could look like and what are we doing as leaders to get better, on a daily basis. So, and really, honestly, it was just it was started out as a chance to just shout out the great things that were happening with our school. And it turned into 60, do things a little bit differently. And they've been really fun to do. I think that there's a couple things in those walks that people have to watch a couple times before they notice, but then they notice that there is definitely a branding element to it, in that, every walk from home to school, I drop 6 Fall Creek mentions in a minute and a half. And I mean, I mentioned that I'm in Fall Creek, Wisconsin. I walk past my license plates that says Go Crickets. I walk past my door that's got a Go Cricket sign. My fence has a Go Cricket sign. I walk around the corner by school. It says Go Crickets on it. And then I always end by saying Go Crickets. And that's 6 times in a minute and a half. And it's all of them are intentional, because there's a door I could walk in at a minute if I wanted to and only get a couple of them. So there's they're always very intentional. And I think it's important because, now I was talking to a guy, because I always say, like, we're all in this thing together, man. Have a great week, everybody. Go Crickets. And so I was talking to a parent the other day, and we're having this conversation. And it was the second time that this happened. One was somebody outside of the district, but I was having this, probably we're talking about this and that and the other thing. And I just said, hey, you know what? Like, we're all in this thing together, man. Let's try to get through. And the guy perked his head up and he goes, Go Crickets. So I'm like, yeah, so they're resonating with people and they're watching them. And I think it gives us credibility. And also it holds my feet to the fire when it comes to the work that I'm doing here. Because if I dared to say anything on that walk that wasn't true, the people in this building would go through the roof. They'd say, well, that's true. Like on Saturday, this Saturday, I did one that was about time, because on Friday we did this, we had PD and we just gave people a bunch of time. That was what the majority of the day was. If that wasn't true, then people would have just been like, well, he's just totally fake. He's just doing this to get likes. He's just doing this to get recognition, whatever the case may be. It was real, and it helped. It was awesome, and I loved it, and I wanted to tell people about it. But if I made it up, then there's no chance that all your credibility gets lost. So anyway, those have been really fun to do, and we'll continue to do them as long as people feel like they're, well, I don't know, maybe not that. As long as I have something to say, which I didn't think that I'd get to 60, and I keep thinking I'm going to run out of stuff, and I probably will, so I don't know. We'll see.
No, they're awesome.
If it goes into a book, I could probably just have somebody transcribe them and in a book, but I'm not smart enough to write the book on my own, I guess.
All right. Hey, here's a second thing from your book. And this maybe was a little more under the radar, but I was like, this is the first time I've read this and I love it. And this is a short segment, so if I need more context, I'll give it to you. But it said policies and mandates affect all schools, but school leaders determine how they manifest in the classroom and affect the educators. Mm-hmm. And you're nodding your head, yes. So do you want to take it from there, or do you want me to get?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, we're good. So the thing about it is, like, you can complain about policy and practice, or policy all you want, but you can't really complain about the practice that goes along with it, because you have to be the one that it helps enact the practice. There's 2 things that go along with policy that we have to understand. And that is the first and foremost, that the people that are putting policy together are making decisions about policy based on what happened to them 25 years ago when they were in school. And so they talk about all these things that how schools should operate, but they don't know how schools operate because they went to school 25 years ago and they're still jacked up. They didn't get a second chicken sandwich at lunch, right? So they talk about it like they know exactly what you're doing, but they don't know what you're doing. And these are the people making laws. So you can be upset about the policy, right? Because you might not have been in the room for the policy, but if you don't have you have an opportunity to impact the person developing that policy by making sure that they know what happens in your space, right? So we do things like making sure that the people who are making decisions for our school district are in the right mindset to make decisions for school districts. Like, so we have we have pictures of kids in our boardroom, and our board faces those pictures to make decisions, right? And so we never forget why we make decisions in the school district. We start our meetings with kids all the time because we want to make sure that everybody at the board level knows why we're making the decisions that we're making. And it changes the conversation every day. We get calls from legislators now. Like, we'll get calls from because we win a couple of awards, and all of a sudden that you get calls from legislators. They're like, hey, we'd love to come to your school. Can we come to your school? Can we come? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Come to our school without a photographer. Come to our school without an agenda. You come to our school, you sit down in a second grade classroom and you stare into the eyes of an 8-year-old and you make them feel safe. Because that's what my people do every single day in this building. Do that. And then tell me how much money we get, right? And I think that the thing that we have to understand is if we're not out there talking about it, they're going to make it up. And we say this all the time, like in the absence of knowledge, people tend to make up their own. That is 100% true. When they don't know what you do, they make up what you do. And when they make up what you do, it's based on what happened to them when they were in school. So when it comes down to policy, we have to be able to enact, we can only enact change in policy if people know what's actually happening. Here's but the rub of it is there are some policies that we don't love. At the same time, we have to figure out ways that we can do the best that we can within the fences. It's like, freedom in fences. Like, okay, so here's the fence. How can we work what we need to do within that fence without complaining that the fence is there? And that's been really interesting for us, specifically in the area of like educator effectiveness in Wisconsin, where we're talking about teacher evaluation. And we had that was like one of those laws that came down and everybody flipped out about teacher evaluation and the educator effectiveness process. And all we did was take a look at what the policy was and say, okay, so if we could work our own process into what that fence looks like and then float that out, then maybe we could be okay. So we just talked to the state and said, here's what we think your policy says. Here's what we're doing. What do you think? And they ended up coming over and saying, like, we love that. Can we use that in our process for this? Can we use that as an example? Well, yeah, absolutely. But if we would have done exactly what it said in like the model book, then everybody would have been upset. We just took what we were doing, what we know what was right for kids, made sure that it met the policy requirement, but gave us some leeway in the moment to do that.
Oh, I love this. Is so good. Let's see if you can answer this one then. Why do you think I completely agree with what you're saying. Why do you think so many other districts freak out? Like what's any idea? I mean,
absolutely. I think part of it, honestly, and this is going to sound awful, but I think part of it is because leaders freak out about it. And they're like, and the reason that leaders freak out about it is because boards freak out about it. And we have to remember that the people on that board, the 5, 7, or 9 people that walk into the room every Monday, first Monday of every month, they're not there all the other days. So you have to make sure that you give them a glimpse into what's going on so they trust the people that are in that spot to make the decisions that are right for the people that are in that spot every day. Our board has been so fantastic, and they trust us, but they trust us because they know what's going on. And I think that that's been a really huge deal for us. But that's the reason that people don't dive in right away, is because they're afraid. And here, there's every reason for me to be afraid here. I was the 5th superintendent in 6 years. So, I mean, it would have been easy to just say, well, I'm just going to have to do what just make sure. So I wanted to keep my job, right? 5th superintendent in 6 years. All I was looking to do was keep my job. So I just made sure that everybody knew exactly what I was doing, because when they don't know what you do, they make up what you do. So as long as I was doing that, then we got some trust built up and people knew what was going on. And then you could start talking about what policy change really looks like, because they trust the work that's happening.
Man, this is great. So I want to ask one more question about that then, because you were the 5th superintendent in 6 years. What were some of those things that you did that built up trust? We got a lot of superintendents who listen, a lot of aspiring superintendents who listen, and that board relationship is something that they're not quite used to navigating. So what is a few tips that you would say, here's how you build up trust with your board?
Give them something to celebrate. The last principle, one of the last principles that we had in our building, used to talk about the 3 B's of education: beans, buses, and balls. So the school board deals with the 3 B's of education: beans, buses, balls. If it doesn't have anything to do with food, beans, buses, transportation, or balls, athletics, nobody hears about it on the board level. So if they're always dealing with beans, buses, and balls, and they never get a chance to celebrate the great things that are happening, then why would you even want to be on the board, right? So you have to get something for them to celebrate more than beans, buses, and balls. So a couple things that we've done is, when we used to do our weekly communication to the board, instead of just saying, here's some great things about what's going on here, make sure you'll post the picture in the document that you're sending to the board members. Say, here's the great thing that was happening in this classroom. And let's say that it was in Miss Sandgren's classroom. So in Miss Sandgren's 5th grade classroom, this is happening. So not only do you post the picture of Miss Sandgren's classroom, but then also post or get a link for the email and their phone number all in the same documentation. So they don't have to go search for a way to reach out and tell Miss Sandgren that she's doing great work. So if it's one click away for them and they can click in the document that you give them and then celebrate the work that Miss Sandgren is doing, then they'll do it, right? So we try to make sure that we give them the opportunity to do that. We invite them to some of the bigger events that we think that they've never been invited. Like we have a street fair at the end of the year, and so instead of doing a instead of giving me a value or like a reflection on their year and how it went or whatever, and I kept reading those and they kept being the same thing over and over again, and they didn't like writing them, I didn't like reading them. So we have this process right now where we do this passion project that's in the book, but we also do a street fair now. So in May we bring everybody together and they do a display of learning for their colleagues, and they teach their colleagues what they learned throughout the course of the year. And our board comes to that, and then they get a chance to see what the teachers are doing. When we celebrate kids at the beginning of every board meeting, we invite the teacher to be part of that conversation as well. So we're always doing everything we can to try to inform the board about the great things that are happening, because they all hear about the coach that should get fired, or why the score wasn't as high as it could be, or whatever happened. And, so this is what I heard that happened. So, those are things that we just got to give them the opportunity to grow with. And if you do that, then you put yourself in a much better position.
So I had a few people reached out to me when they knew I was interviewing you, and they wanted me to ask you a question. They're aspiring administrators.
Okay.
And they said, ask Joe, what is one thing, and now, so we're talking about a principalship here,
okay.
Assistant principalship. What is one thing, what is like the key, the piece of advice you would give to an aspiring administrator?
So the thing that I would tell aspiring administrators is that the first thing is do your job so well that you can't be ignored in whatever that job is. If it's not an administrative position. So if you're coaching, if you're teaching, if you're directing, if you're whatever, be so good that you can't be ignored in that position. Because I think a lot of us look to, when I become the principal, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. When I become the assistant, I'm going to blah, 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 right? But when you do that, you're really missing out on the opportunity to be great in the moment. And you will be noticed if you're great in the moment. Like, I think when I was a counselor, I just wanted to be the best counselor that I could and try to provide some opportunities that weren't there when I started the counseling position. And when we started the superintendency, like I wanted to do some things that we had never done before. So we started a 4K program in like the first 4 months because we hadn't had one. We started a 4K program and we got it turned around in like 6 months. And that ended up being a really big thing around here because it was an opportunity that people hadn't had. So, and that was what I was doing from a principal position. I wasn't thinking, well, I can do this and then I'll be the superintendent. I was thinking, I'm going to do something in this current position that nobody's ever done before because I want to make sure that people look at the growth in this area and say, oh my goodness, that's fantastic. That was really impactful.
For those of us who don't know, I don't know what 4K is.
Oh, 4-year-old kindergarten. We like we start kindergarten at 5, so it's like a 4K early kindergarten.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, let's hop into some of our quick hitter questions, if that sounds good. So if you're joining us late, I'm meeting with Dr. Joe Sanfelippo. Am I saying that right? Okay.
You got it.
And I forgot to mention this earlier, Joe, and I don't want to embarrass you, but you were the 2019 National Superintendent of the Year. So, I mean, not only have you like really shared some awesome stuff this first 30 minutes, you also have some credentials to back it up. So,
and I was honored to be named that by Education Dive. Just a fantastic group of people, and I think they actually did it by height, and I was the most on earth. So I think I worked out pretty well.
Okay, so hey, let's dig into some of these quick hitters here. Okay, so the first question is, if a listener's ever in Fall Creek,
yeah,
what is one, it could be you mentioned it's pretty small there, so you don't have a ton of options, but one restaurant, one bar, could be one park. Where do they got to check out? Where should we go?
There's one street, man. Like there's one road in Fall Creek. Like
Okay.
if you blink, you miss it. There's no stoplights. You're going down one street, and that's it. Like seriously, that's it. So you're gonna stop at Chicken Chasers, and you're gonna get a burger, and you're gonna get tater tots, and you're gonna get jalapeno poppers without question. Yeah, not close. And then you're gonna take a right as you're driving down. You're gonna drive by school and see the incredible kids that are outside on the playground because it's the best place to be in Fall Creek.
Okay. Now, what about cheese curds? They got cheese curds there?
Oh yeah, they got good cheese curds there. They're good. They're good. They got the pop. Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta go. Like I'm a cheese curd, like kind of a cheese curd snob. So, you got to go to the right place and get cheese curds, and and you can eat them. It's like Casey's. Like you can go get pizza at Casey's. It's good. It's fine, right? But you're not gonna go like I just gotta go get some Casey's cheese pizza. Like it's like going to Denny's. Like nobody goes to Denny's. You just end up there. Like that's what happens with a lot of this stuff. So yeah, I will get cheese curds somewhere else, but I'll get the burger at Chicken Chasers all day, every day.
So was there a gas station in Fall Creek?
Yeah, we got two of them. We got two of them.
Quick Start?
Oh, no, they're local, man. Come on, man.
Okay.
Local. We got local people. We got Fall Mart. We got Fall Mart, and we got Quick Trip. We got not Quick Trip. It's like Q Mart. So I mean, it's a little different, but yeah.
Well, I know Quick Star's big. Wasn't that?
No, it's Quick Trip. Quick Trip.
Oh gosh, that's an Iowa thing, right?
Yeah, right. Quick Trip.
Well, another thing we love down here is Culver's, and that's a Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Right? We love Culver's, and Quick Star, Quick Trip, whatever is big down here. So
yeah, I like Culver's. Culver's got a good burger. I'll tell you, they're not like that's. It's a good burger. But I'm not going to get cheese curds at Culver's either. Like, come on, no.
All right. So hey, next question: what is the best up to $50 purchase you have made in the last 6 months?
The best up to $50 purchase that I've made in the last 6 months. Oh my gosh, up to $50?
Well, I confused people in earlier episodes. They thought it had to be like right at $50, and it doesn't. It could be anything.
Then I was the 10 gift cards, or the 5 gift cards that I bought for our staff, and we give them out on Fridays as we ask. So we have to self-certify right now, which means that you have to certify that you are COVID-free when you come in. And so one of the things that we did was, so I had everybody give me 2 interesting facts about themselves. And so they gave me 2 interesting facts about themselves. And then every day when we self-certify through Google, I change the response on the self-certify. So when they click submit, it says, congratulations, you're cleared. And here's one crazy fact about one of your colleagues, right? And then on Friday, I stand by my phone and I'll say, all right, first person to tell me who loves seagulls so much that they carry bread with them on vacation and called extension 1001 gets a $10 gift card. And so then they all just call. It's cool. So that was my best purchase because I can give away some gift cards and celebrate the great people of the school district.
Awesome. All right. Hey, you're an author. You've got your book. So we're going to say I could pick your book as this one, but let's hear from you. What is one book that has greatly influenced your professional life?
Power Branding by Chip and Dan Heath. And it's not close. It's probably the most, all of their books have had a tremendous impact on me because it's about creating moments for people in your space. So, that was a big deal for me when I read Made to Stick. A lot of the marketing stuff that we do comes from Made to Stick. His new book, Upstream, is fantastic. I got a chance to interview him 2 months ago, I think. It's going to be out in the, I don't even have the magazine. The AASA magazine. So in November, it's going to be out in that magazine. And it was just great to be able to hear where upstream thinking came from. And we talked about the power of moments and the impact of of what those are and how people remember the peak and the end of events. And it's just had a tremendous impact on not only how I lead, but how I live in terms of getting people in the right spot to be successful.
Okay, next question, and I feel like this is the Joe question. So the question is best culture hack.
Mm,
And you got
yeah.
a whole book full of culture
Yeah,
hacks.
right.
So, what would be the one culture hack that has produced the best impact on your school?
Uh, two things. The first would be, um, oh man. So actually the one that we're doing, the self-certified thing, is really cool, because I think one of the things that people need to understand is that food is awesome, but pizza parties don't build culture. It's just, they just don't. It's cool. Everybody loves that they get food, but it doesn't build culture. It just is fun for the day. So that was being able to celebrate the work of colleagues and notice the work of colleagues was really cool. The second thing that was probably the most impactful was an idea that we got from Deerfield, Illinois, which was a personal day giveaway. So that, to be able to go in and take over, I'll go in and take over for a custodian or for a second grade teacher. On the 28th of October, I'm going in to take over for a 4K aide. And they get a free day to do whatever they want with. But what ends up happening is when people see you in their space, then they know that you're willing to do any of the stuff that needs to be done in the school, and you don't sit in your office and make decisions. So I would say that that's probably the biggest win for us at this point.
So that person, I heard you talk about personal day giveaways in 2018, and we immediately came back here and did it
Oh,
here.
cool. Yeah. Awesome.
And so we share it. Of course, we share it on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And then I probably had 3 or 4 other districts in Iowa reach out to me and say, "Hey, how did you do that? Hey, what?" And I'm always directing them, giving you the credit, saying, "Well, I got it from here and Joe."
Right.
So how often do you guys do that personal day giveaway? Is it?
We do 6 a year. So
Wow.
I do 2, and our administrative team does 1. So we have 4 administrators and then my 2. So we do 6, 2 or 3 from the certified group, teaching group, and 3 from the support staff group.
Okay, awesome. Hey, Joe, do you have a daily routine?
Yeah. I walk to school. That's my exercise. And then so I am awful. I'm really awful. I just need to be better about taking care of myself. But one of the things that's really important is about with the morning routine is I actually had to change it, because I found myself being in a position that I wasn't really feeling good about the work that was happening. And so every morning I would get in. It's funny because I just talked with a group of administrators about this today. Well, every morning I would get in and I would go into my office. I'd turn on my computer. I'd get my seltzer water. I'd open my email. I'd respond to email. I'd sign forms. I'd go into the school, walk through classrooms, get into hallways, and see kids. And by the time that I got to the stuff that I wanted to do the most, I was already in the wrong mindset to be there for the people that I cared about. Because I don't know if you know this, but in Wisconsin, there's not a ton of people that are emailing superintendents at 6 o'clock in the morning with a lot of great things to say about school, right? So then all of a sudden that stuff all ends up on your list, and you feel like you got to do that before you get out. So all I did was flip that. So, I get to my office, I get my seltzer water because I need that. But then I get out into hallways and into the open space and connect with kids. And I don't get to email stuff until 9:30, 10 o'clock. And people are okay with that if they know what you're doing. If they don't know what you're doing, then they're not okay with that. So if they see you all over the place, then I think it's different. And I think that leaders have to be really cognizant about how they show, where they're at and what they're doing, so people don't make up where they're at and what they're doing. And then you as a leader turn into a number and not a leader. Because people, if they don't know what you do, they start asking this question. Well, I don't know what that guy does. Like, you know what? For all that money, like, we could get more teachers, we could get more devices, we could get all this stuff. We could go on field trips, we could do, get a spa, whatever. I don't know. But they don't know. So they end up, then you end up being a number and not a leader. So I want to make sure that I'm out and about and I'm doing everything that I can to get out and about in the first couple minutes of school or the first couple hours of school, just so people know that I'm there. And I think that's really important. And I think that we've done things that have been overt in that. I do this ridiculous cricket bike check in the morning to check all the bikes in the rack, and people make fun of it all the time. They're like, "Oh my gosh, why are you spending your time doing that?" Well, I'm not spending my time. I don't care about the rack. I don't care. I don't care about the bikes at all. But I want people to know that I'm on site. And instead of me jumping on Twitter and saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm on site. Look at me, look at me, look at me," I can just say, "Well, I'm just going to do this cricket bike check, and it'd be kind of fun and make people laugh and bring a little attention here." But then people know that I'm there. So you got to be really intentional about making sure that people know where you're at.
Okay, so it seems like, I mean, even tonight, shoot, 6 o'clock, it's been a long day. You have a ton of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Where, how, I talk to administrators all the time. They're just burnt out by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Is there anything special? Like, do you eat anything special during the day? Is there just, do you drink caffeine? Is there any other little tricks that you can share with us, or?
I really don't have too much of it. The only caffeine that I drink a 5-hour energy at some point in the day. It's the only caffeine that I drink. And I eat pretty healthy. My wife is a nutritional therapy practitioner, so there's not a lot of non-organic stuff in the house at all. And we've got supplements all over the place. And she's amazing. I mean, she just, like, the work that she does is crazy. The way that she makes people feel in terms of their health and getting better and what they've been able to get through when they battle is just really, it's incredible, actually. So I think she keeps our family on point and makes sure that we have the right food. And I think that's probably has a pretty big role in it. Now, there are days that I'll crush a whole pizza on my own, but at the same time, yeah, I think you got to do that at some point. I just get a lot of energy from people around here, and it's just nice to be able to talk about the work that they do. And I think, even events like, just like doing this, just talking about, I get pumped up to talk about what they do. And that's really a huge deal for me, is to make sure that we can do everything that we can to make sure that people know what they do. We have 3 board goals. That's it. There are 3 board goals. And if you ask any board member what the 3 board norms are, they'll tell you like that. They'll just tell you right away. Because they all know them and they all live them. And one of them, the first one is, the answer is always we. The second one is, we always keep our dirty laundry in house. And the third one is, we never give up the opportunity to say something great about our school. And that third one is the one that we live by. And even tonight, being in a spot where I get a chance to do that, then it just gives me a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, a few more questions here.
Yeah.
What is you've kind of talked about this a little bit, but what is the best tip you have picked up the last 5 years that has helped you be more successful?
The best tip that I've picked up in the last 5 years that has helped me to be more successful is that, boy, that's a really good question. I think that the biggest thing is, it's not about you. Like, it's not. And every day when I'm thinking about, like, how are we making sure that we make this place about everybody that's here, then I'm just really loud. I just really am. Like, the people are doing just incredible things. I'm just really loud. And I think that if we can get our people to a place that they can talk about their passion and they can be recognized for their passion, and and I think we've gotten ourselves to a position here where everybody wants to wear the Go Cricket stuff outside of here because they know they're going to be recognized when they're out of here. And that's been really cool to see the transition go, because there's so much pride in this community, and I love it. And I think that what we've seen is, when we shine the light on the great things that are happening, then people are going to come. And I think one of the biggest wins that we have here is that, our enrollment has been 825 kids since I've been here. And that hasn't changed at all. But what has changed is our open enrollment numbers. So when we started talking about the stories, in Wisconsin, you can go to any school that you want as long as you can get there. And so in 2013, I'm looking at the board right now that I have it here. So in 2013, we had 60 kids leaving the district. I'm sorry, no, 60 kids coming into the district on open enrollment and 45 kids going out of the district. So we net 15 kids. And that's plus. We're plus 15 kids. That's a good thing for us. Financially, it's a good thing for us. And that's a big deal for us, right? Fast forward to last year, we had 70 kids leaving the district, and we had 142 coming in. So we went from gapping 15 kids to gapping 72 kids. And gapping 72 kids at that number keeps us in business, because otherwise, if we don't have those kids, we're losing teachers left and right.
Mm-hmm. So just a few minutes ago, you were talking about just the Go Crickets and the branding that you've set up. I'm curious. Clearly, you've had to think through the systems of how you get you guys are doing a lot. Mm-hmm. Is there anything special that you feel like any special system or a person is there something special that you've delegated to certain staff members, or anything you could share behind the scenes for how you've created that system where you guys are constantly sharing your story?
Yeah. So the one thing is, up until 2 years ago, I was responsible for every single post, every one of them. And except for, so there's our secretaries did all the informational stuff, and then I did the storytelling. So if it was like, don't forget your backpacks, they took care of that. If it was check out the second grade classroom, then I was responsible for that. And I did it because I wanted to keep my job, right? Like, I want people to know where I was, and I wasn't doing the bike check back then. I was just posting stuff on Twitter. So that was up until 2 years ago. And then 2 years ago, we started partnering with Social Schools for EDU in Wisconsin. They're a phenomenal group. They're fantastic. Andrea Gribble runs it, and they're working with over 75 schools in the state of Wisconsin on telling stories through all social platforms. So we've worked not only with their coaching program, but also they take care of posting all of our pictures and stuff for us right now at this point, which has been fantastic and created some consistency. But what the big thing about working with them is we were looking at analytics as to where things are and what gets looked at and what doesn't get looked at. And when we started adjusting when we posted stuff, how we posted stuff, making sure that there was pictures involved with everything, making sure that, we're celebrating the great things that are happening, we really saw our group start to grow. And I think that was a really big deal for us.
Mm-hmm. Joe, what is one big goal you are currently working on?
I got to finish this book, man. I'm telling you right now, I got to finish the book. And I love that we're talking, the book is called Lead From Where You Are. And it's really about how do you develop leadership capacity, not only where you're at, but what is the impact beyond where you're at? And how do we as leaders, how can we be better talent scouts for our staff to make sure that we put them in the right position to lead from where they're at? And it's like, I feel like I'm in just stuck, right? I'm just stuck and trying to figure out what the next thing is for it. But it's really about trying to grow the leadership capacity. And so that's really what I want to do. I want to be able to finish that. And if I finish that, I'll feel pretty good about the direction that we're going.
I'm always fascinated talking to authors. Like, do you have a writing routine at all?
No. And that's probably my problem, is that I don't. And I just write. There are days that I'll go up north into where my in-laws live, a couple hours north of here. And I'll just sit like in they have a little room, on the second floor. And I just sit there and I can write for hours and hours and hours and then be done. And then, like a month later, I'll go back up there and write for hours and hours and hours. But when I plan to go up there and write for hours and hours, I never do. So I think it's just like, when it comes to Tony and I wrote Hacking Leadership like in a month. It took no time at all, because it was just stuff that we were doing and felt like, we asked a bunch of principals what worked and what didn't work. And we tried to fix what didn't work and celebrate what did. And it was really an easy write, to be completely honest. And because it was just stuff that worked, it wasn't like all kids can learn. Like, it was like, when I started this whole thing, it was, here, just write 2 notes to start your day, man. You're going to feel better about it. So
I interviewed George Couros a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
And he said he wrote The Innovator's Mindset in a week.
Yeah, he did in a Starbucks, and and
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he's the one that's publishing this book for me.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, so he calls all the time. He's like, "Hey, you finished it yet? You finished yet?" And then he keeps it. So I know that he wrote it in a week because he tells me all the time that he wrote it in a week.
Oh gosh. Well, that's good. Well,
That
I'm
doesn't
excited.
help. It doesn't help when he says it. No, that doesn't help at
Well,
all.
if this is going to be a Joe and George kind of combination, this
Yeah.
book is going to be awesome. Just get it
Well,
done for us so we can all read it.
I'll see what I can do. I'll try to get it out there for you. But yeah,
Awesome.
he's and George has been wonderful to work with. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him and the work that he's done. And an innovator's mindset is as good a book as you're going to find when it comes to changing the process of school. So, um, but he won't listen to me on this podcast anyway, so I'm not too worried about it.
Hey, hey, man, that's my questions. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to make sure you shared?
No, I think the thing that I hope that people take away is that everybody's got the opportunity to celebrate the great things that are happening in their space. There's no like we talk about the idea of that recognize, acknowledge, extend. Recognize the great work that your colleagues are doing, acknowledge to that colleague that they're doing great work, and then extend the conversation to somebody who wasn't there so they know that great work is happening. And if we keep that in the back of our mind and we always think about how to create those moments that can be talked about by making sure that we're in the right mindset to know and understand what's happening, then I think we're all going to be better for it. And the people who are making policy decisions on different levels are going to have to hear us because there's nothing different when it comes to the leadership piece. Like if you're an aspiring leader, we're telling people just be incredible at your job so you can't be ignored. There's no difference when it comes to talking about schools. Be so great at what you do and so loud about what you do that you cannot be ignored.
Man, that's a great way to finish here, man. I love your energy. You brought it tonight. I really appreciate it. Hey, if people, I know they know how to contact you, but what would you prefer? Reach out to you on Twitter, email you, your website?
Whatever, yeah, whatever, anywhere and everywhere you see my name, just figure it out. And yeah, if you email me and you want to talk, you're going to get my phone number, and I think we're going to talk, or we're going to text or whatever. I think the thing about it, the thing that we need to understand about this is that I end every one of those walks with "we're all in this thing together," right? That doesn't mean that we're all in this thing together when it's convenient for me. If you say that you're all in this thing together, that means you're all in the thing together, and when you need some help, you reach out and you get some help. That's what you do. So, however you get a hold of me first, you're going to end up with a phone number. We're going to end up on a call, and we're going to end up talking about how we can do things better. And that's just how it works. Because if we're all in this thing together, then it's when it's convenient for all of us.
Now, are you doing speeches and workshops for schools then? If somebody's interested in hiring you for that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're still do those. And I think like I had one today and I'll have one tomorrow. And I try to get a couple, most of them have been virtual recently, but it's really about, again, trying, it's kind of how we started talking about how bad I was, in 2007 with getting the message out. Now we're really just making sure that people walk out with the knowledge and understanding that they are doing incredible things. They're capable of doing more if they want, but they're already enough for the people that they're with. So if we can just get people connected and maybe trying one thing different, or making sure that they know that the things that they've been doing for the last 6 months are really, really good, and they should keep doing those things really, really good, then we can change the conversation about how things get done around here.
Awesome, man. Joe, thank you so much. You've got, was it gymnastics tonight?
Gymnastics. Yeah. Allie's gymnastics. She's always there. It seems like she's always at gymnastics, but she loves it. So we'll keep paying for it.
Well, I got to get you out of here. You got to get over to that. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Keep doing the great work, man.
I'll do what I can. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Go Crickets.